Welcome to our workshop panel, Emerging Trends in Social Media. To say that social media is a big part of people's lives is an understatement. Social media has become an integral part of most people's daily lives and routines. It's time to make sure that your content is part of their routine. Our presenters today will help us dive into new and emerging trends in social media and be integrated into our content strategies for the upcoming year. So please join us in welcoming our presenters, John Moore and Chloe Seckman. John is the Director of Digital Marketing at Mount St. Joseph University here in Cincinnati. During his 5 years with the university, he has led numerous efforts related to social media, video production, web content, and digital advertising. In 2021, the university's marketing and communications team was recognized by the American Marketing Association as the Higher Education Marketing Team of the Year. Previously, John managed social media for Pro Football Focus. When he's not dreaming up a new marketing initiative, he can be found organizing neighborhood projects or playing cars with his 18-month-old son. Chloe is the social media marketing coordinator at Mount St. Joseph University. She graduated from Northern Kentucky University in May 2022 with a bachelor's degree in communications and a minor in journalism. Previously, she worked as the social media intern for a men's suit store located in downtown Cincinnati, where she managed their website and all of their social media platforms.
How are y'all doing today? Great. I know that we're in the middle of day 2. You just ate lunch. Maybe some of you, I saw there was some Boston, some Wisconsin. You traveled a little ways to be here, so hopefully you're staying with us. And we think we've got a great session for you here today. As Michelle mentioned, my name is John Moore. I've worked for Mount St. Joseph University, which is a sponsored ministry of the Sisters of Charity. So I'm sort of maybe cousins of a CWR professional. And I come at this from the perspective of really trying to speak to you all like practitioner to practitioner. I've worked in an environment previously that was like one social media post every hour on every channel every day of the week. That was sports media. That was not fun. There's a reason that I only stayed there for a year. And at the university, conversely, there are times where it is very, very busy, and there are also times where in the summer months, if things are a little bit slow, it's kind of like, well, what do we post this week? And so I understand kind of both ends of the spectrum, and hopefully some of our war stories, if you will, and some of the things we'll share will be helpful for you to go back. So that is a little bit about me. I came of age as far as social media goes. Like the first account I ever had was when I went to college. I got an invite to the Facebook, and I felt very cool. That was the summer of 2005, and really my kind of background, if you will, my cutting my teeth in social media came from trying to market my own work. So growing up in Ohio, football's big here, as it is in a lot of places. I always wanted to be an NFL draft guy for ESPN, and so I would write all these articles, and my social media learning was trying to promote them, trying to make connections, build relationships, get players to retweet my articles that I wrote about them. And sort of the crazy thing is that I started this in 2012, and by 2015 I actually got to write a couple of articles for ESPN about the NFL draft. So I grew up and hit my dreams, and I don't know what I've been doing since 2015, but so yeah, that's a little bit about me, and I'll hand it over to Chloe.
Hi everyone, my name is Chloe Seckman, and as you already heard, I just graduated from Northern Kentucky University in May with a degree in communications and a minor in journalism. I've been working at Mount St. Joe University for about 2 months now, so I'm a little newer to it, but I've had social media for, I think, almost half my life. So I remember, I think I first got a Facebook when I was in 5th grade, and my mom was not a fan, but my neighbor across the street had it, so I had to get it. So yeah, then I think when I was 13, I got my first iPhone, and I thought that was so cool because I was the first one out of all my friends to get an iPhone. And then Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, I got all of those social platforms, and now that is my full-time job in social media. So that is kind of what I do in the social media world. So.
Wonderful. Well, we're excited to be with you all today. You know, one of the questions that I asked when I first heard from Aaron was like, who exactly is this audience? Being a good communications professional, I said, who is my audience? I need to know that before I can come up with any sort of content. And this is what I learned. So I learned that there are 80 organizations represented here today, which is pretty amazing from all over the country. So that definitely factored in. Looking at the more than 80% of you are lay communicators, so I can empathize with that as I sort of understand the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati, but I kind of don't. And you know, how do I do this sort of like Catholic part of our identity, which as a university is part of it. You know, obviously not as much as any of you all. I was interested in this next one. 56% have been CWR members for more than 5 years. So like, this isn't your first rodeo for most of you. You have been in the job, you've been doing it, and I say that from the perspective of like, I hope that some of what you hear today can just kind of like shift your thinking, or maybe even be a permission slip to like do something different. So if you go back and you try something that we talked about today, and somebody gets mad at you, say, that guy John from Cincinnati made me post this, it's not my fault. And then this next one, wow, so much empathy for this, 60% being sole members of their Marcom team. So how do we think about trying to like make once and use in a lot of different places? Hopefully that's something that you guys can do just to kind of keep your sanity. And then obviously social media doesn't show up as one of your top 2 priorities. So 88% to newsletter, magazine, and then the website being second behind that. So in thinking about this, we really tried to figure out like, you know, how do we make this meaningful and rewarding for you? And I will tell you, we scouted you out. We can't speak to an audience of communicators about social media without checking out their social media. That's a great way to get into your headspace. So buckle up. Some of you and your organizations may or may not appear in the following slides. Welcome. So what you're looking at here, if you really think about like what we are charged with doing as communicators at Mount St. Joseph University, attracting and retaining great members to our organization. That's really how we think about it. And it starts all the way on this left side with the point of entry. So the first 18 years of somebody's life, how are we engaging with them? And yes, admission owns that, but for us, we have to figure out ways to also show up in relevant ways, because in case you haven't noticed, young people are doing this all the time. And so we've got to figure out how to get on their screens where their attention is. And obviously the engaging part is really about the student experience. How do we make the student experience fun? How do we contribute to it? How do we reflect it back at our students so they can say, hey, this place I go is fun. No, my friend is in that video. I am part of this community. Look, there I am. So those are all, you know, kind of top of mind. And then obviously the ongoing alumni relations piece of trying to keep people connected, creating meaning, injecting joyful little things in their lives, with the interest that hopefully they will give back to both the institution, give back in terms of volunteering, coming to speak to class, and also maybe even sending their kids to our school if we do a great enough job. So that's kind of our framework. And then knowing that we've got this 80-year time horizon of people that we're trying to talk to, there's obviously not one size fits all. So you can see here the different platforms that we're on, and we'll kind of go behind the scenes a little bit with our platforms and who's on the different ones. I always get the question like, hey John, I'm the department chair for such and such, which account should I be on? And I said, okay, well, who are you trying to communicate to? And then they kind of give me a blank stare and they're like, okay, well, I don't know, I think I should just be on Instagram. Okay, well, why? So we'll pull back the curtain a little bit on some of that here. So just to go sort of channel by channel real quick, and hopefully you all know that like this, you all have access to what I'm about to show you in your own profiles. So for LinkedIn, got about 12,000 followers. For us, we would think of that as like an alumni channel. We share this account with our institutional advancement partners because it's like, well, it's already alumni there, why do we need an MSJ alumni account as well? And so it's really more about like professional development kind of stuff, career opportunities, points of pride, always trying to just make people feel good about the place that they came from. Big focus there. And sort of interestingly, I know it might be a little, let's see how we're doing here. So the top two bars there, it's basically talking about like job functions. So you can see like healthcare services, education, those are the things that we're known for, healthcare and education. So just to be able to get that insight, confirmed is helpful for us to know what kinds of things are of interest. And then the same kind of thing with Facebook. So, at one point, Facebook was only for college students. But if you look at sort of these three big bars here in the middle, so this is male, female as far as following. So we skew almost 3/4 female in our following. Our school didn't go co-ed until 1990, so that's kind of reflected in this. But primarily, 45 to 54-year-old women are our primary demographic on Facebook. And so for us, we try to skew it more like, what would mom want to see about the college experience if we're posting? There's a career fair, there's such and such coming up, and consequently, what we see is actually people tagging their kids. So their kid has a Facebook account, but they like don't use it that much. Like they might use their Facebook like some of us used LinkedIn before. It's sort of where they put their like grandma approved version of their life on Facebook. And so we'll post something about like career fair, let's say, or about like freshman move-in, and like mom will tag the kid and say like, hey, make sure you see this. So it's kind of a fun little thing to observe. And then disappointingly, you'll notice that I don't have any demographics here from Twitter because Twitter's demographics are not that great, and they did away with their audience insights a couple years ago, and so you can use third-party tools, but my joke here is that the blank on the right explains why Twitter is only worth 1/10 of what Facebook is in the stock market, so poor Twitter. But for us, it tends to be like really scattershot. We have people of all ages, really of a lot of different interests. For us, for whatever reason, athletics skew like prominent on Twitter. It tends to be kind of a more sporty sort of channel. So for there, we really think about like, we want our different department heads to have, our different coaches to have social media accounts, because we're never going to be there for all the magic moments. We're never going to be there for the bus ride back from the game when everyone starts to sing. We're never going to be there when so-and-so reads a kid a book for the first time. We're just not. But to sort of deputize people with social media accounts of their own, which they are solely responsible for managing, protecting, keeping the passwords for, and then we can kind of curate that. So as much as our role is about like scheduling and pushing things, it's also about kind of curating and training a lot of other folks about how to do some of this stuff. And then my last comment, cheap real estate. Different platforms have sort of different algorithms. If you think about a lot of different cars trying to like enter a highway, that's basically what content is into people's feeds. It's a lot of different content sort of converging, got that mesh point, and the algorithm filters it out. And so on Facebook, that's why you see only about, let's say you have 10,000 followers, only 3,000 might see any given post because they're curating it. Whereas Twitter is much cheaper real estate because it just kind of moves fast, and sometimes people come to me and say, hey John, can you post about this on social media? And I'll like post it and be like, it's on social media on Twitter. So that's kind of a quick overview, and Chloe will keep going.
Okay, so the next platform we're going to be talking about is Instagram, and I personally think this is the app that we use to reach our students the most. I think being fresh out of college, this is the one my friends and I use the most. But yeah, as you can see on the graph, about 2/3 of our followers are women, and about 1/3 is men, and then our most popular age is 18 Yeah, our primary audience, I would say, is definitely current students and young alumni. A lot of the content we focus on is different student takeovers, which can be things like day in the life of a commuter student, where they take over our Instagram and show kind of what they do throughout the day. This can be somebody who's on the volleyball team or the football team, kind of showing what they do and what their classes look like and who they're hanging out with. We also like to highlight different campus events that we have, which can be things like the career fair we have coming up next month, and kind of getting the students prepared for that and constantly reminding them that this is coming up. And also our big homecoming game that we have coming up, we like to show that, and yeah, just remind the students of different events and activities that we will be promoting.
And hey, Chloe, so something interesting we learned, we've got these different like partners that we work with to help us recruit students. Somebody said the other day, students don't go to your website to scout out their university, they go to your Instagram and look at your feed. And that was a pretty big like aha moment for a lot of people in our office that were like, oh my gosh, maybe we should pay more attention to social media and invest there. So students scouting on Instagram, not on a website or a magazine.
Yeah, I went to a social media seminar a couple weeks ago, and that's what the guy said. He said, I think it was ages like 15 to 22, they're more likely to, look up a company or a restaurant or anything on Instagram versus Google. So I thought that was a really interesting fact, so yeah. All right, and then the next platform is TikTok, and this is my personal favorite. I love TikTok. I'm all about the TikToks and the videos, but yeah, so our primary audience is again about 2/3 women and 1/3 men, and yeah, we don't have the ages.
Yeah, they didn't have it.
They don't have the ages on TikTok, but yeah, I think we definitely use this platform for prospective students and current students. So a lot of what we do is show student life and answer questions about the campus that prospective students might have. This can be things like what the dorms look like, what the food is like on campus, what parking is like, kind of just a little bit of everything. If they have questions about it, they can go to our TikTok page, and here's all of them right there. So yeah, that's it for TikTok.
Cool.
All right, so my next question is, I guess by a raise of hands, how many of you, does your organization use LinkedIn? Anyone? All right, what about Facebook? Twitter? Okay, Instagram? And what about TikTok? Okay. Starting. And then another thing that we like to keep in mind at Mount St. Joe is who our audience is, and constantly reminding ourselves that our audience is our students, and we're trying to get them engaged and bring in more students. So I think that's definitely a question that everybody should always keep in the back of their heads, like who your audience is and what you're trying to do. So I think constantly reminding yourself and trying to base your content off that is a huge thing too.
And let's actually stay here real quick. So can I have a couple of volunteers sort of fill in the blank for us? So I'm trying to reach students, and my ask of them is to visit. What would be an equivalent for somebody in the audience? Yeah.
We're trying to reach 20 to 40-year-olds, because we don't have any demographic really. And our ask of them is we're trying to join them, so finding events and things, kind of where are they at, really? What's interesting to them that we can partner with them.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yes?
I'm trying to reach people who want to become Benedictine spiritual directors worldwide, and my ask of them is to check out our global online program and to enroll.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes?
We're trying to reach donors, and our ask of them is to remain engaged through social media, share it, and maybe donate for anything there.
Yeah, trying to stay top of mind so that when not just the post, but the board ask, the volunteer ask, the monetary ask. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I see a couple more right here.
I'm trying to reach young adults, maybe in their 20s. I think my first ask of them would be to volunteer.
Okay. In what kind of setting would that would?
In a convent setting.
Okay.
For sisters.
Gotcha. Please.
My first thought is we're probably trying to reach too much, but we're looking at the different platforms and know that at the different focus of different age demographics, like for Instagram it would be the age groups we talked about, and for Facebook we realize we're getting an older demographic, exactly what we want. But overall we want to connect with people who resonate with our spirit and want to connect more too. Like I hate to say like-minded, but there's a resonance.
Yeah.
It's
Thank you.
probably too broad, so speak to that if you want.
Yeah, I mean, I think like, and I don't mean to imply that we only talk to students, but I think it's just trying to be targeted about like, who is this for, and let's just sort of be like honest with ourselves about that. There's a very famous podcast host who talks about, he hopes that, like he's got a really big audience, and he said he hopes that each episode really matters to like 10 or 15% of his audience, and the other 85, 90, so he's not worried about, because next week he'll hit a different 10 to 15% and kind of, but I think just having like the intentionality around that so that you can write in an authentic voice and sort of come across as clearly as possible, because that's, in looking through like probably 30-ish of your different accounts, 30 different organizations' accounts, like that came across sometimes of like, I'm not exactly sure who this is for. Like, is it like, can I go do that thing, or is that for like sisters who are looking at this, or is this for community members who, it isn't always clear, and it's a challenge, but I think just the awareness of it is important. And then I think we had one more hand back here somewhere. Yes?
I'm trying to reach people under 40, and I ask for them as to join the associates.
Okay. And that's sort of like the on-ramp, if you will, to membership or sisterhood? No?
No, it's for lay people who want to be connected.
Okay, gotcha, okay. Thank you. So yeah, hopefully that's kind of a helpful like starting point, having just sort of reviewed where we've noticed our audience is naturally gravitating, and then thinking about yourselves. But I also recognize that you all are stretched pretty thin. So I will tell you, I've been to a number of similar conferences to this, and been in your seat, and as much as anything, I think sort of sharing specific like mental frameworks rather than specific like thumbs on the screen things is going to leave the most lasting benefit for you all. So that's what we're going to work through here today, and we'll kind of explain sort of how we think about our efforts, and obviously you can kind of transpose it to the audiences you're trying to reach. So our students being the star of the show, that's a big one. Be sociable, but not social. We'll explain a little bit about what that means. Not having pressure to invent all the time and just like come up with interesting stuff to post, but just doing cool stuff. Piggybacking on that, showing the journey, not telling us after, and then having templates but being flexible. So those are kind of the handful of things that we'll talk about and share some examples for. So just like right off the bat, the number one thing that always gets a ton of engagement for us is when we put student faces, lots of student faces, in a post. They tag themselves, they comment, they tease each other, like, hey, I bet you wouldn't have worn that shirt if you knew you were going to be on the university's Instagram today. Things like that. So really making our students the star of the show also helps engage with our parent population and our alumni, because alumni can see themselves back in that same spot. And then parents obviously love to see their kid having a great time there. We're going to pull our first handle here and see what the slot machine of social media gives us. Wouldn't you know, the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati. So in scrolling through feeds, certain things start to pop out. very quickly, if I can just sort of tell, oh, their average is 10 likes or 30 likes or whatever, and there's one that's like, whoa, what did they do there? I stop and look at that. So in this particular case, very, very simple. This particular person, I'm sure Aaron could explain it better than I'm going to, was going through a very meaningful ceremony, and they had both invited people to it on the front end, but then they actually showed it, day of this person making this commitment, and the number of like encouraging posts, comments, etc. was amazing, and it was like, wow, this person embarking on this journey, and they have this whole community, and this is a thing that probably happens with some regularity, and just to have sort of the wherewithal to sort of put your sisters as the stars of the show, humble as they may be, because that's what's going to help represent your brand on social media. All right, so be sociable, not social. So how many of you have like heard sort of things called out to you like, oh, like go post some stuff on social, or get that on social, or we gotta blast it out on social. And it's very easy to like kind of get in a mindset of thinking this is just a megaphone for me just to like scream into the void and hope that people like it and care and come engage with my organization. But what we're trying to do is actually like be sociable. So for us, we have a Twitter list set up where it has like all the iconic Cincinnati brands. So like the Bengals, Kings Island, Skyline Chili, the Zoo, you name it. And we'll try to find windows to interact with them. So in this particular case, what you're looking at, we did kind of a little clip together, a bunch of students singing happy birthday to Fiona the hippo. And then we were able to tag the zoo in it. And that's just, a fun kind of thing. Like, you would sing happy birthday on your friend's answering machine. Like, this is us being sociable here with another key brand in our region. So kind of extrapolating that, let's pull the slot machine one more time. And we've got the Congregation of Sisters of St. Agnes. Is that you back there? All right. Yeah, I love this post so much. Like, this felt like it wasn't like this wall of seriousness. It was like, oh, these sisters are sociable and fun, and they care about what's happening in the world, and they're tied into these current events, and let's do this fun thing. Like, I love this post. This was amazing. And you can see it got a number of comments there, 78 engagements. Like, this is just fun stuff. And a good reminder that it doesn't have to be serious. It can certainly have an overarching theme of that, but it is okay to inject some fun. All right, slot machine one more time. Let's see, Sisters of St. Joseph of Baden. Are you in here? All right. Well, if you see that person, heckle them later. For doing a great job, So this was, they had invited in a local like culinary person to teach a class, and they just showed this kind of more recreational, sociable side of their sisterhood. Then they tagged that local business in their post to help, bring some more eyeballs to that organization. All right, and then number 3, don't invent, just do cool stuff. I always say on our team, like, we don't need to invent things to post. We don't need to just like come up with it out of thin air. There's already cool stuff happening. We just have to go and document it. Don't invent cool stuff. Just document the good things that are already happening. And so if you think about, like in this particular case, this was a group of students who go and they read books. They're education students. They go and they read books to the local school, which is like, I don't know, half mile from our campus. And it got picked up by the local news. And there's a wonderful little thing. All they did was go and read, and the cameras showed up because they were doing a cool, meaningful thing. When I say, what I'm about to say, it's a little bit of a violation of this, but like we're actively thinking about like how do we like sort of make cool real life experiences happen on our campus, such that people just want to post about it rather than like feeling like they have to like manufacture it. So slot machine, Ursuline Sisters of Louisville. All right, you're back there. Yeah, I see you guys, I see what you're up to. So in this particular case, they didn't invent, they just did cool stuff. This is news from San Miguel, Peru. And it talks about how this sister had been taking these actions after heavy rains were disruptive to that community. And I'm sure you all have things like this, you know, sisters out in the world doing wonderful things that any given day, you know, with some intentionality, you could call attention to the cool stuff that they're out in the world doing. So hopefully that's a good starter. I'm going to hand it over to Chloe for number 4. So, yeah, you can just drive off there. Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to be talking about is show the journey, don't tell us after. So our mascot at Mount St. Joe is a lion. So last year we had an 8-foot tall, 14-foot wide lion sculpture put in front of our field house, and instead of just taking a picture after and showing it, we kind of documented the journey that went along with it and all the people who helped and what all the behind the scenes looks and all the work that was put into it. So I think that's a big thing that everybody can do, you know, if they have a big accomplishment or something that's being built, just anything, you can just kind of document the journey and don't just post the final product, show the journey and show everything that went into it.
And you want to show that video?
Are we sure?
Yeah. So while she's pulling this up, yeah, we knew about this and we basically set out, like, what if we made like a little docu-series about the making of the lion? And this was the 4th episode. We did 4 episodes. This was the last one that shows like the install and then the day of. We'll play just a small piece of it for you, but kind of bringing people along on the journey with us.
Casting Arts and Technology is a fine art bronze foundry. We work with sculptors in the region to take their original work, which is usually made of clay or another material, and change it into bronze using the lost wax ceramic shell process.
It's destruction and creation. You know, we're creating waxes that get melted and are lost. We are pouring metal where half of it's getting chopped up, we're eroding the surface, we're doing all these things, and in the end, you get this beautiful sculpture.
On a project of this scale, we use probably...
Okay, so it's a little bit of what we did.
There you go.
Okay, so we should call it the slot machine next. This is the Felician sisters.
All right.
Perfect. And we're going to play this video too.
It's the second one, yeah.
Without the volunteers. It's all about hospitality. It's a place where everybody feels welcome and where we don't judge. Guests can choose which food items that they need for their families. Putting good energy into caring for one person is better than doing nothing. And you never know what effect that will have on that person and then long-term effects, you know, on the people around them. If people come as a volunteer, you know, their lives will be changed.
And I love coming here volunteering to help people. The systems here are very nice, and I think it's always good to help when you can. I love it. I really do. I love them also.
We have a sign on our door that all are welcome, and that is what we are all about. If you walk in the door, you're welcome. We couldn't do this without it.
So if I may, since you were also enthusiastic over there, do you want to talk, like, just in terms of sort of that effort and how much went into, or you know, how it was putting that video together?
So I've actually already been in my job there a month, but my colleagues made this.
Okay.
I have a young colleague who is our social media person.
Gotcha.
So I know we had some problem with it, she took the one with pieces.
Hello. I'm embarrassed to tell everyone that I've met I do know that because we have I have another colleague who's been in charge of our social media. She and I both just started with the Felicia Sisters over the summer. We had some long footage, and my colleague Naima has been able to take the bigger pieces and make some short videos for social media purposes.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for the person who preceded us before lunch here, but I know for a fact I could make that by myself on my phone using the kinds of tools she was describing. So like this is entirely within your reach in a way to bring people along, you know, on the journey instead of waiting until after to show people.
All right. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about is have plans but be flexible. So at Mount St. Joe on TikTok every week, we try to do a question of the week video where we ask the students something and then they answer it. And it's kind of just lighthearted and fun, and it brings student engagement and just makes the campus look lively and fun. And yeah, so I'll show that video.
What's the question?
What advice would you give your freshman self?
I would tell myself, never procrastinate. Your friends want to go out, you're like, yeah, let's do it. And you forget about that one somewhere. Then bang, darn, now you have a seat.
A piece of advice I would give my freshman self is to not study too hard and have some fun.
A piece of advice I would give my freshman self is just clean your room.
A piece of advice I would give is to include yourself with more people.
A piece of advice I would give my freshman self is to just break out and dance every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree. That was me in our social media co-op at the end there dancing, so it was cute.
And then the Myth switched it up.
Yeah, so our engagement was good on the question of the week videos, but then we were thinking, you know, maybe we should switch it up. And even though we had a content calendar of question of the week, we were like, let's do something fun. So we did a cup stacking video, which kind of switched up the vibe a little bit. So that was good. So.
Cool. So those are our five tips that we have. I promised you in the beginning that we would have 5 tips. We've delivered 5 tips, but wait, there's more. No, so in putting together the framework and kind of checking through your all's profiles, we realized that there were certain like content pieces that we're seeing out in the wild. We were like, we got to share that. Like that's different from our sort of 5 thoughts, but it's like meaningful and something that we think we want to try to elevate. So the first one, we're going to pull the slot machine again. We've got the Adrian Dominican Sisters. Are you in here? Back there? I feel like this quadrant over here is. So the tip with this is to make that ask. We talked in the beginning about sort of like who are you trying to reach and what is your ask. And looking through like hundreds of posts on your all's feeds, this very simple and personal, straightforward ask that was made here was an outlier in that I didn't see a lot of this. So let's see here. And the caption, are you discerning God's call? Join us on October 14th through 16th for an opportunity to meet other women in discernment, spend time in prayer, learn about the Adrian Dominican Sisters, and have some fun.
Hello, I'm Sister America, a Dominican sister of Adrian Missionary. Are you single Catholic women between the ages of 19 and 35? Have you ever wondered if God might be calling you to explore religious life? If so, on behalf of the Dominican Sisters of Adrian, I would like to invite you to Weber Retreat and Conference Center in Adrian the weekend of October 14 through 16. You will be our guest. During that time, you will pray with us. You will experience the Dominican spirit of joy and hospitality. You will learn about the Dominican charism. You will hear the stories of several sisters in regard to their own vocation call. And you will hear sisters speak of their ministerial experiences throughout these years. You will also enjoy the opportunity to converse and share meals with us. And finally, you will have the opportunity to meet other women who are also in discernment. So, if you are interested in joining the Dominican Sisters of Adrian the weekend of October 14 through 16, please contact by either call or text Sister Catherine at 260.
All right, well, we'll spare her phone number, but yeah, hopefully, you know, just a very simple, straightforward, personable, relatable kind of ask. You know, I thought that stood out as something that I saw very, very infrequently, but to me stood out as meaningful. And then the last one that we'll share, you know, if I think about sort of like the what you want me to do, and seeing the sisters as a resource in the community, I loved what, let's see, the Benedictine Sisters of Erie. I see some knee tapping over here. Yeah, I loved this this blog post about like sort of a spiritual view on work. To me, that is a thing that I would read as, you know, someone sort of looking for guidance in that space. So how do we take this wonderful wisdom that these sisters have and put it to use for the general public and in a meaningful, helpful way? So I really thought that I clicked in, I read, I thought it was very nicely done, and just something that would be repeatable for you all as well. So with that, we are down the home stretch. If you want to reach out to talk about anything related to social media, there is our contact info, and I think we have 5 minutes or so to field questions if there are any. Yes?
How do you stay ahead of the social media apps that are out there? I have a 19-year-old, and you guys didn't even talk about Snapchat.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think for us, because it's easy to try to race, you know, around and sort of do this thing. With Snapchat, yes, it's sort of held up as a social media, but I think at a certain point we were like, wait a minute, this is just like messaging on steroids, and it's more of like a one-to-one thing than it is like a broadcast, you know, your story kind of thing. And so at different points we have dabbled in and out of that particular platform. But I think within reason, like I would rather you, this is what I tell people on campus. I'd say pick one and like do it really, really well, rather than have 5 and be like syndicating them, because because like, so for example, something that I saw, and I'm not gonna, you know, rat anybody out, but notice that these were all good. I didn't rat anybody out on screen grabs, but like there were instances where it was very obviously syndicated. So it was like an Instagram post, and then it was just like shared through to Facebook, and it would say like, click the link in our bio on Facebook, and you know what I mean, but you could just put the link there. And like that kind of thing to me says that person has too many accounts, they're struggling to keep up with them, so they're just syndicating them everywhere, and in effect kind of like doing themselves a disservice because the account is just sort of obviously not for that. So I hear you about sort of the desire to scramble to the next new thing all the time, but I also think that there's a lot of value in like people who really want to find you will find your channel. It was very easy. You all did a wonderful job with putting your social icons in the top corner, on the bottom. It was easy to jump. I went to all your websites first and then just clicked through to the social feed. That was how I found them. So I would think about it more as people are going to come and kind of window shop your social, whereas like the website is much more like what you believe in, what you stand for. The social is like what you're actively doing and what's going on in your world. And if people really want to see that, they'll come find you wherever it is that you have a channel. So, back corner.
I know you talked about your social media calendar, but you also referenced your social media plan. Could you tell us what's involved in that?
Yeah, so particular to the calendar, and I think, was it Chloe that mentioned that, like, the plan? We try to always stay ahead of what's coming up on campus. So we have a calendar that basically just says, here's what's happening on campus, like here's what we want to post about on these particular channels. For certain ones, we won't post a certain thing. And obviously we probably have more bandwidth than you all do in terms of staff resources, so I recognize that. But I think for us, it's just, we try to have like a little bit of a drumbeat so that we're not having to constantly scramble. And that's, I think, why certain things like Motivation Monday or Throwback Thursday, like, they're popular because they kind of make it easy to do something that you don't have to invent from scratch. But then still having that flexibility, as we made in point 5, about like, we can kind of pivot and say, all right, well, let's do this thing because a deer broke into a building today and was running free on campus. That's better to post about than whatever we're going to do, give ourselves that grace. So I think the plan and the calendar, we just kind of use interchangeably as terminology, I think. Yeah, in the red?
We've had, during our table chats today, we've had several people mention that they're perceiving that when they link, like if you raise,
you use some examples of sites where you've got the post and then you link to the blog or you link somewhere else. There's a perception among some people here that once they send people off Facebook, that Facebook's algorithm is they're not getting as much coverage.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
I mean, anecdotally, I completely agree. I don't have like my, links versus non-links kinds of posts, but yeah, I mean, I would say that is especially true with YouTube. So like if you all do a video, if you follow the 11 o'clock workshop and you do a video, like upload it straight to your platform. If you link it to YouTube, like all of these companies are in the business of stealing attention. And so Facebook doesn't want you to go to YouTube because they know how treacherously like deep the rabbit hole goes on YouTube. And so they want you to stay on Facebook. So as much as you can like natively upload a video, a picture, the content, I mean, there's a little bit of a different reason. It has to do with linking, but on Instagram, like, we don't even bother with like link in bio or that kind of stuff. We like, as much as we can put in, we'll put into the caption, and I think you get like 2,200 characters. And like, if somebody really wants to read, they'll read. But to ask them and to constantly change your link in bio, and then like last week's post has the wrong link in bio, and and then you got a share tree and it doesn't have the, just like. But yeah, I definitely see some of our posts that have links taking people away from Facebook in particular, sort of getting suppressed by the algorithm. Yep.
What do you do about getting permission to use images in your videos and posts? Do you use a media release form?
So there are a couple different things. All of our like students, faculty, et cetera, are like in their like intake paperwork basically say you can use my likeness, and to if at any point you want to opt out of something, like talk to the person who's asking. So that's one way. For like mass scale public events, we put signs at all the doors that basically say, you are entering graduation. Graduation is a public event. You are here on your own free will. There will be photography taken. Unless you, like, permission is essentially assumed unless you come find somebody and opt out of a thing. And then for like kids, let's say we have high school come visit, like everyone from the high school will get mom or dad to sign their permission slip, so they could, if they come for our teaching summit, they can be in the photo. So that's just a couple ways that we handle it. Yeah. All right, and yeah, right on here.
Quick question, what is your success rate when it comes to overlaying text on top of photos?
Text rate. So like if you were to do, like, I think about them like Easter cards with like, the graphic. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I have great great data for you. I could pull it if you want to shoot me an email here. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a good sort of point to end on. We threw a lot at you. Some of it might be out of your comfort zone. The ultimate thing about social media, though, is that like none of us really know what will take off. We just don't. So to not just constantly tinker and try stuff is to like do a disservice to yourself. Like there are things that like our co-op will be like, hey, I think I want to do a TikTok about such and such, and we're sort of like, I don't know. And then as long as it's not like terribly objectionable to our brand and our voice and sort of the continuity of our feed, let's try it. If you want to do, like, literally she texted us today and said, hey, the Bengals play tonight. Can I run around campus and get a video with everybody who's got a Bengals jersey or a shirt on today and make a TikTok out of it? Yeah, let's try it and see how it goes. And obviously you all don't have that same bandwidth per se, but I would encourage you, like, if you think it's weird to do any of what we just said, like, the reality is that it might feel uncomfortable, but like the marketplace will tell you whether or not it's any good. And so just always keep trying different things and sort of testing what works for your particular channel and your audience. So thank you all so much for having us. This was really fun. Hope you all learned something. We'll see you around.